Don't let other people's own limitations affect you.
Good luck to my ancestors.
Hope they're well.
Hope they're well.
Great little caviar.
Very good caviar.
Right, guys, welcome to this episode of SCULPTED podcast. It is a bit of a different one. I have not done a solo episode in probably like 6 or so months, so it actually feels a little bit unfamiliar being in front of the camera again like this. And hold up, maybe I have done a solo episode like maybe a few weeks ago, but that was when Alfio and Charles were also here, so it didn't feel like a solo episode as much. But nonetheless, here now. The reason for that is because Jack is unable to get to the Central Coast at the moment, so we'll head down his way and try and get a few episodes there. And the new episode start will be a little bit shorter, more succinct, trying to get these out. It's relatively difficult actually, because Jack and I being so far apart, also then with the app and really trying to prioritize the time. But nonetheless, still getting it done. This is like episode 170 something, I think, so yeah, you know how it is. Pretty easy from here. So maybe a bit of an update on everything SCULPTED, things going well, getting interest from investors, which is awesome. And getting things moving. So we started to grow the team on the investment side, the investment ready side as well. So like in terms of reaching out to people, saying, we'd love to get you on board upon investment. And we've got some sick people on board who are willing to hop on. So we've like built up a whole team basically upon investment, which is sick. The next 4-year plan that we've got is looking tidy. And that's really what the next few months for us are in timeline wise with investors and etc. But make sure you do head over to the website and download the SCULPTED journal for 2025. That is currently out and ready for you to give a go. That's basically kind of just judging the way that we will use the app and getting us some feedback from the users themselves of the app in the future. So that's really cool. Very, very helpful if you guys can download that, give us a bit of feedback. It is a lot of work to do each night. Therefore, I would say if you can just do like a few sentences here and there, you're really going to get the best out of it. This was designed by both Jack and myself. So that is really what the SCULPTED app is going to be around, in terms of less writing in the earlier days, but more on the reflection part of tracking and etc. So there'll be many issues with the PDF version. We're very aware of that. And the overall purpose of the journal is really just for us to get a bit of feedback on everything. And the feedback that we expect is it's a lot of work and maybe I'm a little bit confused. And that's kind of what we expect. And for us, the reason why we're doing this is so we can say to an investor, look, this is the feedback we've got. These are the 200 odd downloads that we've got from the journal, and they want an app. And then we go build that app. And that's where we're at the moment. So currently in test flight, you can give the app a go. It's pretty simple at the moment. It's literally only a few pages and it's just a prototype at the moment. But in the next week or so, we should have things moving a little bit nicer. And it's cool to look at, cool to play around with. But right now, just in the beta stage. So really just growing everything on that side. So that's just a bit of an update, all things SCULPTED. Nonetheless, talking a little bit about what I will be speaking about today. And I've got a few, short little topics that I wanted to speak about. And the first thing was really about don't let other people's own limitations affect you. Now, having played football pretty much my whole teenage life, I never really faced that in terms of other people saying that you can't do anything. In football, we all believe that we can. And that's actually an interesting part of football that maybe it's unique to me. I would assume it's not. Like if I was to go say to another footbal player in my team, like, I want to be playing in the Bundesliga one day. They probably also want to be in the Bundesliga one day. That's why you're there. And maybe that's also situational to the level that I was at. Like, because I was primarily with professional teams, I'd say that most people want to be there. Maybe if I was played local leagues, it'd be a little bit different. But that's something that I found working in a professional environment. People's own limitations will be projected. I don't like using that word projection, but in a sense, it's good here. And people will put that projection onto you. Now, I would say that it's easy to fall into that trap of believing it if you don't have the mental skills or the even just confidence or even, actually self-awareness to understand that that isn't true. Some other person's projection that maybe reflects an insecurity within them, or maybe it even just reflects a belief that they stand by because it's their own personal experience. Don't let that influence you. And the thing that I find is that some people who are trying to give advice are giving situational advice of you can't do this because they didn't do it. They wanted to do it, but they can't do it. And because they didn't do it, they then think you can't do it. And like, I also understand from the person who's saying that why they're saying that, because it probably makes them feel a little bit better because they also want to have comfort in knowing that the reason why they didn't do it is because it was just impossible. But the reality is, it's not impossible. It may be very difficult to do. Maybe you can't do it. And that is an unfortunate reality. But I would say that when people do try and do that to you, you've got no reason to believe it with a very, very consistent narrative of I can do anything and I'm the type of person to make it work. Now, whether that's you and whether that is your narrative, you've got to work on that. That's definitely my narrative. So whenever I was, limited by others, for me, it was just another Tuesday. I've felt limited by a lot of people many times, sorry. And maybe back onto the football side, like footballers within football probably wouldn't limit me, but definitely people externally would. And also it makes sense. Again, like, it does make sense. I guess the reason why I'm thinking about it now and kind of going back on what I was saying and thinking, no, I probably was limited, but those people who were limiting me, they just meant nothing to me because it's typically like parents. It's typically like people who've got no idea. So I guess this is where it's like people have an idea, and if they do limit you, it's easier to believe them because maybe they're a little bit older than you, maybe they're a little bit more experienced. So maybe you've got more reason to believe them. But I would say that if you do identify that, then literally just don't fall for it. You can do anything that you want to do if you do X, Y, and Z thing the right way. Now, take that with a grain of salt. I don't mean literally everything. There are, physiological and biometrical things that get in the way, and then additionally other things. But nonetheless, that is something that I found working in a different field as of recent, and just being in different types of teams. And that's again not a criticism. Oh, it is a criticism, but it's not a misunderstanding of like I don't know why they're doing it or I have a distaste towards them. No, it's not that. I understand completely why they're doing it. I wouldn't say I have a distaste towards their actions towards me. I'd say maybe a distaste towards the message behind it, because I would assume that it's from a lack of action or a lack of direction. Maybe they didn't do it the right way. But nonetheless, long story short, that is a interesting reflection that I had over the past few months working in a different field outside of football. So the next thing that I have got, on the flip side, I've actually had some interesting times where there's people who believe in me for no reason whatsoever. Now, sometimes the people who believe in you for no reason whatsoever reflect something or a character that they wish that they had. And again, it may come through a self-limiting belief that person has. So if I was to be really unconfident in specific situations, but I then find someone who's really confident, then I might believe that they are someone who can do X, Y, and Z things that I wish I could do, but because I'm not confident, I then assume that they can do it. And these people are really like, I've had this before, and I'm thankful. Although I'm aware that, the more that I listen to someone's opinion that validates me, the more I'm also susceptible to someone's opinion that invalidates me. So I try not to listen to both good and bad. It's lovely to have those types of people where they've got no reason to believe in you, but they do. And maybe that's also confirmation bias. Maybe they actually don't believe in you as much as you would like to believe, but just hearing it is nice to hear. Now, again, I would say that listening to others' opinions, full stop, is, but firstly, it's human, and you will never not be able to not listen to others' opinions and not let it affect you at any level. It will always affect you, but just like, how much control does it have? So, in general, I would say, don't listen to other people's opinions, full stop. But it is very interesting that other people can let their limitations kind of, that they would like them to hold you back, or kind of say, you know what, because I couldn't do it, you can't do it. And then there's also the other people who are like, I can't do it, but you've got the thing that I wish that I had, and therefore you can do it. It's an interesting take. And I've had both experiences. I would say, like, obviously, the one that is most front of mind for me is the people who speak not ill, but the people who try and limit you. So obviously that's just negativity bias. Humans are typically negatively like biased towards hearing things, whether it's a compliment, but then let's say you get 20 compliments and one bad thing, you're probably going to remember the bad thing much more. And that's just literally how humans are. So no issue with that either. I think that's just a interesting thing for humans to be aware of, and then additionally act accordingly, realistically. So the next topic is the lag of being a winner. Now, this is actually kind of the whole sculpted philosophy, and I actually wrote an interesting post on this today on the website. And this is kind of the sculpted philosophy at its core, but not directly. It's part of the ideology, which is long-term sustainable self-development. And I guess this podcast is a great example. So from starting it in like my tiny apartment in Germany to where we are now. Now, I'm not saying that we're the biggest podcast in the world. Definitely not. Although through consistency, through doing, I don't want to say the bare minimum, because we're definitely not doing the bare minimum, but I would say doing something that's at a sustainable level to where, 1 episode a week, we can do that. Over 2 years' time, how many can we do? You know what? We haven't stopped doing it. For us, there is a lag to being a winner. Now, I would like to believe, and I know this isn't true, but you would like to believe that the person who shows up every single day, whether they start off very, very slow and very, very small, eventually they will get to the top. Now, it's not maybe the highest of highs, but eventually you'd like to imagine they get rewarded. Now, the reality isn't that. And I'm actually also an example of that. And so is Jack. And Jack and I always used to say, we would like to imagine the cream of the crop rises. But the reality is it doesn't. Now, in my football career, I don't know where I could have gone. I believe that I could have still made a good career for myself professionally. I don't know, because I stopped. I was at the highest of highs when I stopped playing football, and that was the exact same for Jack. On his debut, he got injured and never played professional football again. After I had my health issues, I had a few other opportunities in Australia. I didn't take the professional opportunity, weirdly enough, and a few weeks in, I decided to stop and go full-time with the business side. And I will never know if I could have gone and made a really good career for myself. I think I pretty confidently could have. I was still 18, 19, so it was like very young, and I'd just come off, obviously, playing in Germany, and actually some pretty big moments in Germany for myself. So could I have done what I had set out to do? I think 100% yes. Although I believe that the opportunity of the app, the podcast, anything entrepreneurial, I saw that was overtaking the possibility of football. And the main reason was relocating back to Australia and then just being behind as well. So I would love to, I would have loved to have kept playing football. Although, again, I saw the potential of what I'm doing now to outweigh that. And it's a risk. It's very much a risk, because there's probably somewhat more security in the football side than the business side right now, because I've got more proof in football than I do for business. But nonetheless, there's a lag of being a winner. Now, that lag of being a winner is it's time. It's sweat equity. It's minutes on the pitch, and it's not getting rewarded for it. And I would say that this is where you have to have faith in your process, and then additionally faith in falling. And when I say falling, I mean when you fail, how well do you actually get back up? Now, that's a cliche, and I don't like to typically use cliches, but what I mean by that is you don't fall to your actions, you fall to your processes and systems. So, for example, if I was a football player and I got injured, if I was to try and get back to the level that I was at, it's going to be very difficult just by trying. You actually have to have a system and process to get back where you were. So that's recovery. That's by, following a rehabilitation program. That's by getting match ready again, getting fitness again, getting your skills back, your technique, your coordination, etc. Therefore, if the worst case scenario happens as a footballer, you get injured, then you have processes to come back, and you have confidence in your process, not through your actions per se. It's without guidance or strategy. And I'm very, very strong believer of processes and system led, and that's been something fully consistent in my career. Now, there'll be people who are able to get away with not doing systems and processes and get even further than the person who may do systems and processes in their life. And that's the exception to the rule. And I wouldn't say that you should bet yourself on being one of them. I would say probably bet yourself on the, 95% of people who get there through systems and processes. Now, some people may be aware of their systems and processes. Some people may not be aware. Now, in my personal experience within football, typically people are less aware of how they got there. And it's just like, they were just good. I was always great. That's like a typical answer for a really good footballer. It's not really like, oh, hard work, dedication, etc. They were doing that. That's actually a non-negotiable in football. Like anyone who was at the highest level did not get there without hard work, dedication. That's literally the entry ticket to even be called a footballer. So that's literally assumed knowledge. But then there's systems and processes that take people to the top. Now, a few people who like spring to mind, obviously, Ronaldo, people like that. But outside of the typical people, and this also requires a high level of like knowledge of people's personal life. So I would assume that we don't know the full extent of people's systems and processes. But for example, I know Riyad Mahrez was very process and focused on like long-term sustainability. And that's a good example. Like you may not think that Riyad Mahrez is like that, but from what I've heard, and I may be wrong here, but obviously it's probably more consistent at the top level with systems and processes, that they are system and process led. Now, putting that in the business side, you can only be system and process led. You can't just get there by accident unless it's like a viral product. So realistically, and also with a viral product, typically if you don't have the right leadership and sustainability practices, once you are viral, then you'll probably just fall off really quickly. So in business, it is completely system and process led. So whether it's a quarterly analysis, whether it's a financial projection, everything has to be put out in front of you. And that's why one reason I think that business is a good thing for me, because the lessons that I had from football, I always was having a business mind about it, whether it was through, just connecting with people on LinkedIn, whether it was through, I basically just lived my life as a business, as a footballer, through my training plans, through my exercise, nutrition, recovery, things like that. Like I didn't really go to the gym to get stronger. Obviously, that was a byproduct. I went to the gym to play longer, to essentially not get injured. And that's what happened. I did really, really well with that for like more than 4 years of not getting injured from, other than obviously like a conflict, like of, how am I forgetting the word? When you get trauma, like trauma to the bone or whatnot. Like I had a fractured wrist, and that was because someone hit the ball directly into my hand and just flopped everywhere. So outside of those types of things, like I didn't get injured from overtraining per se. Don't even get me started on that. Anyways, long story short, I ran football like a business. And that's why, as I said, going into business for me seems like a reasonable thing for me to sustain and really excel in. Because I think that the nice thing about business as well is that the thing that separates people very quickly is like delegation. And you may think I'm a control freak and etc. I am a little bit to a degree, but I'm also aware that I can't get to where I want to without delegating. Therefore, I will obviously delegate. So if I was to be put up one-on-one against the person who's listening on the other side of the screen right now, in terms of if we were to give, 24 hours to start a business and we can only use our resources and we have zero money, I would bet on myself to create a better business than the other person, assuming that they're at, the same level as I. And then that's about it. I can't really do too much more if it's a 1v1 and we're at a similar level. Now, if we're talking about an unlimited budget, or maybe just, we're going to go even unlimited first. We'll just go for a tighter budget. If I had $400 and the other guy had $400, I would again bet on myself, because I then back myself to know the things that make a good business and make attention come your way, essentially. So when you start to think about you only have 24 hours in a day, now imagine I had $0 and that other person had $400, they'd beat me, because now they've got X, Y, and Z, other things done, whilst I am just working on my own capabilities. Now think about that on a much larger scale. Imagine you've got $0 and you're just doing it all yourself. The person who's got $1 million will trump you every single day. Now, I'm sure there's going to be an exception to that, so take that with a pinch of salt as well. I think that these exceptions to the rule are very modern as well. I don't think that there would have been many exceptions to the rule back in, pick up the ancestors, hope they're well, friends of the pod, obviously. Back then, because, for example, if you were, a wealthy person in the crops, you had to have probably hate to say it, slaves, but well paid slaves ideally. And they would essentially go do the work for you, but at a sustainable level. You couldn't necessarily send all of your stock overseas. You wouldn't be able to ship everything. You wouldn't be able to do everything on a global level. Therefore, you and your competitors, the main difference would maybe just be manpower rather than profitability or just product. When now it's literally just attention. Rather than product, you could have an okay product that does amazingly because of attention. And where on earth am I even going with this point? I've got no clue. Manpower, efficiency. Okay, in business, that is where you can become really, really efficient by doing little. And unfortunately, in today's economy, well, unfortunately, no, not really unfortunately. The game's a game. So you just got to adapt. But I guess it kind of takes away the core principle of business, you could say, which is like providing value and getting a monetary exchange. It gets exploited a little bit. And I guess that's where you could almost lean on the fact like a lot of really successful businesses that are coming out now may not be a typical brick and mortar business. In fact, none of them are really. So I've got a lot of respect for those guys who do brick and mortar businesses. And yeah, I think the main point is lag of being a winner. The lag of being a winner. I think that if we wrap that up with, you have to trust the process, but also don't just trust the process blindly. Don't just, like, for example, if I'm training, don't just train for the sake of training. Train with the sake of X, Y, and Z goals and actually work on it. It's something I was very intentional with my own personal training, which I was very limited at by times for a long period of time, actually, which was changing up the training session, doing something different. Now, if I could redo my football career, I would continue doing what I did with the intentions that I had, but I probably would have had more people around me because I did everything very solo. And the limitation with that is I could only do my own training exercises. I couldn't really improve a whole heap by myself. I would say especially also because I was a goalkeeper, I was even more limited. So the training that I was doing, I was very constricted by the training that I could do by myself was throwing a ball against the wall. And unfortunately, that actually ended up like hindering my own progress. And I guess if you were to relate that to a business sense, it's like if you go so tunnel vision, and again, I wasn't purposely being tunnel vision. I was aware that tunnel vision or like blind tunnel vision's great, but blind tunnel vision to where you don't know anything but that is unwise. But I was aware that I was doing that, but there wasn't another way around it for me. I could have made better overall decisions, potentially. Maybe if I didn't go to Germany when I was really young, maybe if I didn't go to Germany again at 17, maybe that's actually, who knows? But I also am not really, I don't care about that too much because I learned so much. But went off track a little bit. If you were to think about it, like blind tunnel vision can end up hindering you more by going through the daily, cycle of it, process, if you are blind to your processes. So if you're sticking to your processes so much but not knowing or not really having an objective goal with them, then you can like fall into the trap of, I guess it's just not really making as much progress as you should or could be. And I think that's an interesting thing. And again, like the lag of being a winner. Trust the process, but also don't settle for continuing to do the process blindly. Always come with strategy, always reassess, evaluate. That's actually a good thing. Reassessing the processes that you have. So like every 4 months I have in my notifications, reassess the processes that I'm doing. Is this one still working for me as much? Is it doing X, Y, and Z? So like, for example, when I stopped football, I got rid of like maybe half of the processes and then kept like a few good ones in there and then added a few more. And then it's going to be the exact same when we actually have like applicable data and whatnot for the business side. I'll just have more processes on there where I can then reflect and assess that way and kind of navigate. But nonetheless, I think that's pretty much it for this episode. I think it's a pretty short episode, but I hope there was a bit of value in that. Make sure you do download the Sculpted app and test flight. Leave some feedback for us as well. Please make sure to download the Sculpted app journal, the 2025 one. Again, put a lot of effort into that. Any feedback in there is really, really helpful because that will help us refine the overall product in the app. We want you guys to be a part of the building of that as well. So make sure you do download that. Things are moving, like genuinely, things are coming along really, really nicely at the moment. And the people who are getting involved is sick. The level, the interest, everything like that. It's really, really cool to be doing and also documenting. Like I say it a lot. You've heard me say it before if you're a listener of the podcast. And additionally, if you're Jack McLaughlin, you'll probably punch me in the face for saying it. But this is like the documentary. Like ideally, this is the type of thing that we'll be able to look back at and think, yeah, those were the days. hindsight. But nonetheless, make sure you do all that good stuff. Subscribe, follow. I don't even know. Just, yeah, comment. Actually, if you want me to do more episodes like this where either you guys send me stuff to go through, read, whatnot. Same for Jack. If you want to see solo episodes with Jack, let me know. Definitely want to try and do one of them as well. But yeah, make sure you do like, subscribe, whatever. I don't really know all the call to actions. But yeah, we'll be working on them in the next few weeks. The data analytic team, we had a meeting with them the other day talking about the call to actions, and I always said that we forgot to do them, and I've already also forgot to do them. But do all that good stuff, and we will catch you on the next episode of the SCULPTED podcast.
Parado no bailão, no bailão. Ela com o popozão e o popozão no chão. O popozão no chão e o popozão no chão.